It may seem like such a small, trivial thing. Reaching out to touch your partner's body in the night as a subtle invitation for physical intimacy, only to have your hand go untouched and unreciprocated. And yet, this seemingly minor moment carries the weight of so much deeper meaning and consequence in a relationship. What should be an innocent gesture has the power to trigger agonizing self-doubt, raging arguments, crippling shame, and even the unraveling of the relationship itself. As insignificant as it may appear on the surface, that untouched hand in the darkness has been the catalyst for innumerable affairs, bitter feuds, divorces, and a profound corrosion of self-worth. The craving to feel wanted. At its core, the desire to initiate physical intimacy and have that gesture enthusiastically received is about far more than just the pursuit of sexual pleasure. It's about the fundamental human need to feel wanted, desired, and valued by the person we have committed ourselves to. When your subtle overture of a caressing hand gets no response, or at best a half-hearted acknowledgement, it can feel like a devastating rejection, a clear signal that our partner is simply not that interested in us on a core, primal level. The willingness to initiate sex, and the fervent reciprocation of that initiation, becomes like a litmus test for how appreciated and cherished we feel within the relationship as a whole. For one partner to consistently initiate while the other never returns that gesture, or responds with minimal enthusiasm, it can start to take on deeper symbolic meaning. It can feel like an omen that this person we've entwined our life with fundamentally does not love, crave, or yes, even lust after us the way we do them. That imbalance in passion and pursuit starts to cast doubt on the entire relationship's stability and longevity. The naive hope of exhaustion. Of course, an unreturned caress or two doesn't necessarily indicate such dire circumstances. Sometimes a person's hand goes untouched through no fault of anyone. It's simply a matter of ill-timed initiations when their partner is too physically or mentally drained to be receptive in that moment. An untouched hand doesn't always have to mean anything more than, "I'm exhausted from work, kids, chores tonight." We'd like to believe it's that simple, but in the ambiguous realm of the dark bedroom where emotions run high, it's extremely difficult not to jump to graver conclusions and make weighty assumptions without any real discussion or understanding. When rejection stings so potently, the human mind will scramble to justify it as something more existential than mere temporary fatigue. The curse of shame, which leads us to the most pernicious aspect of the untouched hand's ability to cause such emotional chaos, the element of toxic shame that so often underlies these situations. For when someone is already burdened by deep-seated feelings of insecurity and self-loathing, an unrequited gesture takes on brutal significance. For the person whose self-esteem is mired in uncertainty and self-doubt, their partner's apparent lack of interest becomes confirmation of a much harsher reality they fear in their darkest thoughts. What might otherwise be brushed off as a fleeting, understandable disinterest instead gets interpreted through a harsh filter. Proof that they are repulsive, undesirable, and unworthy of being wanted passionately. Their partner's untouched hand isn't a mild rejection, it's damning evidence that the most beloved person finds them disgusting on a primal level. In this toxic state, a healthy discussion to understand what's really going on becomes impossible. Overwhelmed by beliefs planted from past woundings, feelings of rejection get internalized without the objectivity to question if this is really about them or some other temporary factor. The untouched hand isn't just a hand anymore. It's the manifestation of every fear and insecurity made real. The path forward becomes limited and doomed. For a person gripped by such intense shame, there is no ability to address the issue calmly and lovingly to decipher the truth. There is only reaction, either corrosive silence and bitterness, or explosive anger that pushes the partner away further. Either way, the relationship dynamic is trapped in a self-perpetuating cycle of hurt. A spotlight on self-love. Ideally, if we could love ourselves with the same unconditional care as a loving parent, an untouched hand would carry no more significance than a stray gesture met with temporary distraction. We'd feel confident enough in our worth to not jump to conclusions, and open enough to discuss it with our partner honestly, without fear of devastating judgment. From that place of self-assurance, we would be able to soberly evaluate if our partner's periodic disinterest was circumstantial or a more endemic lack of attraction requiring separation. We'd have the wisdom to recognize that ending a relationship over sexual disharmony doesn't make us unlovable human beings, just incompatible partners in that regard. We would walk away, if necessary, with our dignity unfazed. The tensions around unreciprocated intimate gestures expose a much broader challenge many of us face in relationships: the inability to be truly vulnerable and ask for what we need. To have the self-worth to say, "I feel rejected" when things aren't working. To have the courage to insist on change or choose ourselves over toxic dynamics. All of that stems from the unshakable belief that we are inherently deserving of love and happiness. So we must not leave that untouched hand lingering for too long, unacknowledged in the shadowy silence where it metastasizes into self-loathing. When we feel the first pangs of rejection in that moment, it's imperative that we find the strength to shatter those quiet assumptions which threaten to take over, to bravely shine light into the darkness by voicing our hurts and fears to our partner, to strip away the shame by seeing ourselves as inherently worthy of desire and passion, regardless of temporary passions. Only from that place of radical self-acceptance can we find the open-hearted clarity to truly understand what our lover's untouched hand means, and whether it's something we have the power to evolve beyond, or a reality that requires us to move forward in the name of self-preservation. The untouched hand may seem like a trivial, insignificant act, but its implications run fathomless deep. We owe it to ourselves and our relationships to handle it with the utmost care, compassion, and self-love.